On this week's episode of A Dryer Dose of Disney, Jared shares one of the biggest time-saving tips, single rider lines.
Welcome to another episode of A Dryer Dose of Disney. I'm your host, Jared Dryer, and this has actually been a really fun week of writing episodes for this podcast and trying to decide what we're going to talk about next. In fact, today's episode is going to focus specifically on single rider lines at the amusement parks. And when thinking about that topic, we actually were debating, are we better to talk about things like Genie Plus at Disney World first, or the Express Pass at Universal, or do we go right into single rider lines? And we ultimately decided we're going to do single rider lines first. And the reason for that is it makes more sense when we start talking about Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes and the Express Pass and how single rider lines can help overcome some of those obstacles there. So we figured in episode order, this one made a little bit more sense to go first. But now, hey, the next episodes that are coming are Genie Plus and Express Pass over at Universal. So we're going to get into those. We do want to ask you, hey, if you love this podcast, go ahead and subscribe. Click that subscribe button wherever you're listening. So whether that's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or you're out there in YouTube and you're watching us on video, since we do have a video version, click that subscribe button. Now, when you're going to the parks, there are a lot of options for skipping lines. There are a lot of choices to get ahead of the crowds and to shorten your wait times and to maximize your day and get the most out of it. Like we were just talking about, you have Genie Plus, which at the Disney World Park is $15 per person per day. So if you're going for 4 days, a family of four, you're looking at $240 extra for you guys to use Genie Plus every day that you're out there. And that does not count the individual lightning lanes. Like I said, we'll talk about that on our next episode. And then at Disneyland, granted there's only two parks, that is $20 per person per day. So again, family of four, you're looking at $160 for the 2 days. Not bad when you compare it to Universal. Universal has their Express Pass, and I am flabbergasted at how expensive their Express Pass is. And I've actually bought it. I've actually used it. And we're going to talk about that on that episode and whether or not it's worth it. But the Express Pass starts at $79 per person for the day. Now, granted, it's very different than the Genie Plus, since you don't have to do your reservations. You can just go to whatever ride you'd like. And then it goes all the way up to $109 per person per day for the Express Pass Unlimited, where you can do that as much as you want on rides over and over again. And when you think about that, a family of four, you're packing on another anywhere from $320 to over $440 just to get these Express Passes for your family. So it is a huge cost savings if you learn how to use single rider lines. And again, we'll talk about that, how it compares in the episodes with Genie Plus and in the episode with Express Pass. But we wanted to get this information out there first about these single rider lines. If you've got money and you don't mind spending the money, go ahead and do the Express Pass or the Genie Plus. Those are great options for you. But if you're trying to pinch every penny, you're going to want to do single rider lines. So let's talk about what are single rider lines and why do the parks use them? Okay, so right out of the gates, single rider lines are queues for filling in the gaps in the rides. So for example, if you've ridden Radiator Springs Racers over at California Adventure in Anaheim, you know that those cars are 2 rows. They seat 3 people per row, so 6 people per ride. With those 6 people that are on the cars, you may have a family of 4 and you have 2 open spots. What they've done is they've said, hey, we want this single rider queue, just individual people that are willing to fill up those last 2 spots. Or if it's just a single spot, they'll take that last single spot. And that way we know every time this ride runs, it is completely full. And that way we're maximizing our capacity. We're maximizing the number of people that can go through each hour on that ride. And the reason that's really cool is a lot of people think right out of the gates that to do a single rider, you either need to be at the parks by yourself, or you need to be that person who, I want to ride this roller coaster, but no one else in my party does, so I'm going to go do that by myself in the single rider line. And in fact, that's not the best way to use it. We use it for large groups, and I'm going to dive into some examples here in just a moment. But I want to give you a quick story about a time that we actually used a single rider line to a huge advantage. And you can at least then, in practical terms, understand why this is so valid and so important. And this was on a trip in July this year. We were at Epcot and we went there for the day. And when we got there, we said, hey, we want to do the World Showcase. We want to go hit some of these other rides. And we did our normal Epcot day. We rode Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, which is an absolutely incredible ride. We did Soarin', we did Finding Nemo and the Living Seas. We made our way through the World Showcase. We did the Frozen ride. But when we got back over by Test Track, which we wanted to finish our loop over there, and we weren't worried about being to the front of the line for Test Track, the queue was 90 minutes long. So an hour and a half. And they had the cast members out there in the foyer area, so the big concrete area out in front of Test Track, with the sign saying the line starts here, because the line was all the way out to that point. They had different managers out there helping extend the queues, trying to make the line longer so they could feed more people into the queuing area. And my wife looked at me and said, we are not waiting in this line. And I said, no, we're going to go do single rider. And she said, it's probably going to be an hour-long single rider. And I said, let's just go check. So the three of us, walked into the single rider line, and we walked forward all the way up to probably 20 feet from where they were loading the people that were getting on the ride. And our wait time was less than 10 minutes because we were willing to break up our group, and we rode in 3 different vehicles. None of us got into the same vehicle together. We rode in 3 separate vehicles. Our wait time was only 10 minutes. And you can imagine, obviously, standing out in the heat, because there were quite a few people outside in that queue, waiting 90 minutes. It's not worth it. It's not worth waiting 90 minutes when you can do it in 10 minutes. So, like I said, a lot of people have always thought these queues are for people that are by themselves or want to ride the ride and no one else in their group does. No, we say take a whole group, put the whole group through it. Now, I would only do single rider if my kids were 10 years old and older. Disney actually has a hard rule that says if they are 7 years or younger, they can't do single rider. And obviously they have to put that rule out there, and they say all over the place groups will be split up. And it's because people have probably tried to manipulate the system, and they bring their 3-year-old through a line for a ride that has a single rider, and they say, well, I'm not letting my 3-year-old ride with someone else, so they are going to ride with me. And it's not fair to the cast members or fair to anyone else in line. So they say you have to at least be 7 years old. You will be split up. You have to fully acknowledge the fact you will be split up. There have been a couple of rare occasions, like I said, with like a ride like Radiator Springs Racers or Test Track, who also has the same format of 6 people per ride, where a family of 4 goes and there's no pairs that are out there to pair up with them, so they take 2 from the single rider line and we end up riding together. That's really rare, but it does happen. So you need to go into it expecting your party's going to be split up no matter what. So like I said, I would not plan on taking anyone younger than 10. I just don't think that they'd be comfortable sitting next to a stranger. Disney's going to cap you at 7 years old. So it's a great experience, though, for those even in large groups that everyone's older than that. For example, our last trip with a large group, we took 6 people to all the parks in Orlando, and the youngest person in our group was our daughter, who's 11, and she's done this with us for years, so she's totally comfortable with it. What is the disadvantage, though, of doing single rider? You're going to miss the queue in most cases, and this is particularly important in Universal Studios. So Universal Studios, you're going to bypass the queue for all the Harry Potter rides, for Men in Black, for Revenge of the Mummy. And by bypassing these queues, you lose some of that element of what is this ride about? What's the theme for the ride? What's going on? If you're a huge Harry Potter fan, I would say probably don't do single rider on your very first time riding it, but on all the subsequent rides, single rider is going to be the way to go. Your first time through on the Harry Potter rides, you're going to see so much pre-show, so many different elements of the ride before you even get on it, that it's worth at least seeing it once if you're a big Harry Potter fan. If you're not a big Harry Potter fan and you just like rides, then by all means, skip it, go right into the single rider queue. You're going to save yourself a ton of time, and you're going to usually get right on the ride. In fact, one time my daughter and I went on Escape from Gringotts. We walked all the way through up to the front, and they called us right onto that next car just because they had the available slots right there. So you can see we had a 0 wait time. We walked right onto the ride, and that ride at that point, I think, had about a 45-minute wait time. So that saved us a ton of time out there. Now, Disney's done it a little bit different, where like Test Track, you can still design your car by going through that single rider queue. There is no pre-show at Expedition Everest, which is one of them. But most of the other rides, you're still going to go through the majority of the queue, like Aerosmith. You're going to still see the band. So that's a cool part of that. So they've done a little bit better out there. Now, when you do single rider lines, so let's say you do have a larger group, you are totally able to obviously stand with your group in line, which is usually when you're conversing anyways. So for our group of 6 on our last trip, we would still stand in line together. We would still chat it up together. We would still be playing games. We like doing the heads up, the Ellen game while we're waiting in line. I will sometimes be checking work emails while waiting in line. So I was still able to do all that. And we were still able to be very social. The point I like throwing out there, and this is where our guests had a challenge, is they didn't want to do it at first. And it took a little bit of convincing to get them to do single rider. But once we were at Universal and they saw the advantage, because there are more rides at Universal that have it, they were like, we should have been doing this all along. And I was like, yeah, it saves a ton of time. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how often when you're on the actual ride, so this is the actual thrill part of the ride, are you talking and conversing or enjoying yourself with the person next to you? You're usually not. Usually the experience is a very individual experience, even on a ride like Radiator Springs Racers, where you may be sitting next to someone in your family. Yeah, if they're little, you may be holding their hand, but if they're 10, 12 years old, 14, 20 years old, you're probably not holding their hand. You're probably looking at what's going on in the ride. You're probably enjoying the speed and enjoying the thrill of it. So that's why it's not a big deal to go into the single rider line and ride by yourself. As soon as you get off, you're right back with your group and you're going to be talking all about the ride and what was the best part of it. I say it's definitely worth it. You're not talking during the ride. Go do single rider. You're going to save yourself a ton of time. So I have 2 I can do this all day tips for you today, and I'm going to pair them up together. And the first one is, anytime you're in a large group, have an adult go first, have an adult go at the end. So that way you sandwich your whole party together. All the kids, if you have 10, 12-year-olds in your group, they're in the middle. So that way an adult gets on first, and then obviously they're going to be the first off, and then they can wait at the exit for the rest of the party to come off, and they're a good central point of, hey, let's stand here and wait for everyone else. The one thing you don't want to have happen is you have your 10-year-old go first. They get off the ride. They decide they need to go to the bathroom or they're going to go down to the gift store, and everyone else is waiting for each other. And then you all get off and you realize someone's missing because the 10-year-old went ahead of the rest of the group. So always have that parent go first. So that way they're there to catch everyone else as they're getting off the ride. If you're in a situation where you are a single parent and you've got multiple kids, again, have the parent go first. And then the rest of the kids will get through the line as soon as they can, but then that way the parent's there to catch them as they come off. The cast members are there. They're queuing everybody up. Your kids aren't going to be that far behind you by doing that. But again, the best practice is if you have 2 adults, put one at the front, one at the end. Now you know when everyone's gone through. Obviously, you have full count of your group then. The second I can do this all day tip is single rider. This is the strangest thing, and we tested it a dozen times. It works better on rides that have more than 2 seats per row. So some of the rides, and we'll go through them all here in just a moment, some of them are a 2-seater ride. On some of those, I would go check out the single rider queue. I'd go see how long and how backed up it is. If it's not backed up, then by all means, yes, do single rider. If it looks backed up or it looks lengthy at all, don't do the single rider queue. And the reason is, oddly enough, especially for 2-person rides, so that's usually your roller coaster, so like Rock and Roller Coaster, Expedition Everest, the Rip Rocket ride at Universal, they're all 2-seaters. And a lot of people, when they think roller coasters, know that it's a 2-seater, and groups will typically funnel down into groups of 2. So you may have a group, let's say an odd number of 5 people, that are going to go ride a roller coaster. Usually there's one person who doesn't like it. So you're now going to have 2 groups of 2, the 4 remaining people riding together, and there's no odd person or odd number left. So because of that, for some reason, the 2-seater roller coasters do tend to be a little bit longer of a queue. But in contrast, the exact opposite of the spectrum, your rides like the Hulk roller coaster at Universal, Men in Black is a really good example. Escape from Gringotts, The Mummy, Transformers, Spider-Man, all those rides that have more than 2 people per row, the single rider lines move so ridiculously fast. I would do that every single time I go. Any of those rides that have more than 2 people per row, that single rider line is going to just cruise. You are just going to be moving, okay? So that's my second point and tip of the day is anything more than 2 seats, go on it for sure. Anything with just 2, go check out the queue before you get in it, because if it's long for single rider, you're probably better off going into just the regular queue just to get through. Okay? So that is how we in our family have avoided purchasing Genie Plus, is by using single riders. And the reason is single riders are usually going to be on your bigger rides. Of course, back to the age requirements, you're not going to see a single rider on a Peter Pan or Snow White's Scary Adventures at Disneyland. You're not going to see a single rider queue there because everyone can ride it. You're only going to see single rider queues on rides that have height requirements, and they're usually the bigger ones, the roller coasters, the ones that people will line up for all day to do. And another good point there. Those are the rides we want to do. So, like I said, that's how we've avoided paying for Genie Plus, and we get all the best rides in by doing single rider. So let's review which rides have it. We'll talk about a little bit about each one. And as we go through this list, again, another disclosure, this list changes often. In fact, there are a couple rides that have single rider or typically have it that just fell off the list in 2022. And they are now testing it on new rides that have never been on this list before. So this list changes all the time. I recommend do a Google search before you go. Start mapping out your trip, what days you're going to be there. And even what we like to do is usually the night before. So we've done the whole park for whatever day we did. And we go back to our place or our hotel for the night. And we're now, getting ready to go to sleep. I will pull up the next day. Okay, let's just look. Which ones have single rider? Let's double check. Where am I going to start my day? What am I going to hit first thing in the morning? And what am I going to do for my rope drop strategy, which we've got episodes coming up on that as well. So those will actually come after our Is Genie Plus Worth It and Express Pass episodes. We'll start going through park by park. They change all the time. Let's start in Anaheim. Disneyland. There are currently 3 rides at Disneyland that have single rider queues. The first is the Matterhorn bobsled. And this one is a tougher queue to find. It's towards the center over by where the 2 lines come in together. So if you've ever been to the Matterhorn, you can see it's split. There's 2 sides. There's one side that is for traditional queue. The other side is for the Fast Pass, or now the Genie Plus Lightning Lane queue. And right there between them is where single rider is. So don't go to the main queue line and follow the line all the way down to the end. Go right up towards the hut. You're going to see where single rider is. And usually there's very little or no line for single rider there. Now, on this one, there are 3 per car, and you get 2 cars per ride. So there's 6 total seats. And with those 6 total seats, you've got plenty of room for single rider, and that one's going to move very quickly. So definitely recommend it on the Matterhorn bobsled. It's also great for us because my wife doesn't like that ride very much. It's too jerky. So my daughter and I will run in to do single rider. We're usually on and off within about 10 or 15 minutes. And we're back out front with her, and she'll just go grab a Mickey pretzel while she waits. The second one is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So back in the Black Spire Outpost out in the Star Wars land, you've got 2 rides. You've got Rise of the Resistance, which is probably one of the best rides I've ever ridden in my life. That one does not have it, but Smuggler's Run, you definitely can. There are 6 people per that ride, so this one also moves very quickly. In fact, when we did this at Hollywood Studios out in Orlando, last time we were there, the queuing walks right up through the stairs, right up to the top where you're going to board. Your group for sure will be split up. You are probably going to end up as an engineer in that instance. Now, at the end of the day, I can tell you, I've done them all, from pilots where you can go up and down or left and right, to gunner, to engineer. And honestly, the pilots don't have as much control as they think they do. The gunners, more often than not, put it on auto gun and they're just hitting a button. Engineer is just as interactive as all those others. It'll start lighting up and you need to hit buttons. And that's actually one of the best places to get points on that. So Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, you're going to get on usually within just a couple minutes. And it's not a bad thing to be in the engineer role. And then Splash Mountain, which is an odd one. Again, you're going to want to walk over the bridge all the way down the hill over towards Pooh's Corner, and you're going to see where that single rider queue is. Again, not everybody wants to get wet. So if you have somebody in your party that says that they don't mind getting wet and they want to ride it, tell them, go ride single rider. They're going to get on and off usually in about 10 minutes anyways, and they're going to come off soaked, and you didn't have to get wet, and you didn't have to wait an hour for them. So those are the 3 rides at Disneyland. Hop on over to California Adventures. Actually has more single rider lines than Disneyland does. And actually, the better rides have it. And so this is a huge strategy at California Adventure. So first, right out of the gates is Web Slingers, the new Spider-Man ride. This is a really cool ride, and I believe even today still is using virtual queue. You always want to check the virtual queue. Again, we'll talk about that in the Genie Plus episode as well. But check your virtual queue to see if Web Slingers is going. That's going to be the quickest and easiest way to get on. But they do have single rider lines, and when you get into these carts, I believe they can hold 4 people across is the number. So again, more than 2, you're going to get through that line pretty quick. So Web Slingers. Our favorite, Radiator Springs Racers. I have no clue why people have not figured out this queuing at Radiator Springs Racers. And the reason is, you're in the normal queue, you see the single rider line next to you. You see how fast that queue moves. It moves 100 times faster than the normal queue ride line is. It's right there. They all see it, and people still have not figured out this trick. The Radiator Springs Racers single ride queue is probably one of the fastest queues in the entire park. And Radiator Springs is going to normally have one of the longest lines in the entire park. As a matter of fact, that is a typical rope drop strategies to run to Radiator Springs Racers. I say don't do it. And we will talk about that on the California Adventure episode. Don't do it. You have single rider. You're going to get to the front of the line like in 10 minutes. So there are other rides you can go rope drop and get to the front of the queues right away other than going for that one. Now, it's a cool ride. So some people say, well, I may want to do it multiple times. You can do it multiple times. You can go single rider, ride it, come off, go do single rider again. There's nothing preventing you from doing this. They're not sitting there counting you. They're not saying, hey, you can't do that. So you can ride that ride multiple times, and that's a great way to get to the front of the line really quick. Next is Grizzly River Run. Now, this one, again, like Splash Mountain, is one you're going to get wet on. This is a ride, honestly, I have only ridden once, and it's because I got soaked. It is one of those round tube rafts that goes through the rapids, and water's coming over the side the whole time. You will go underneath waterfalls. You're going to get soaked. So this is one that is going to drench you, and some people don't want to get that wet. I don't love getting that wet, so I've only ridden it once with full poncho and flip-flops on, which is a good reason to bring those in your backpack, which we talked about on our 10 things you should always bring with you. But that one's got it. Next is the Incredicoaster. You can't miss it. Single rider line is right next to the general queue. This one's going to walk you right on up. You're going to go through the elevators instead of going over the stairs, and then you're going to be lined up in the center console area where they're boarding the cars. Now, with Incredicoaster, they can board 2 cars at the same time. So knowing that, this one can also move incredibly fast. Now, this is a ride where it's only 2 per seat, but typically the single rider line at this ride is very short. Again, people in California don't use single rider, I guess, as much as they do in Orlando. And this one, usually every time I go and we get in single rider, has 5 people, maybe 10 at the most, and we get on within 5 or 10 minutes. So the Incredicoaster, great opportunity there. Next is Goofy Sky School. This is the other roller coaster at the park. It's one of those smaller format roller coasters where you go up and you just zigzag around, drop a little bit. It is pretty shaky. It'll rattle your brain just a little bit, but they do seat 4 per ride, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And because of that, I don't know what makes that different than a long roller coaster with a whole bunch of seats of 2, but for some reason, this group of 4 doesn't always fill up. So you have groups of 3 or, a group of 2 and the next group has 5. So they're going to take 2 singles and put them onto that one. So that one actually does move pretty quick. So Goofy Sky School. So you have a total of 5 rides at California Adventure that have single rider. I have heard rumors that they are experimenting single rider on Soarin'. This is so needed. They have needed it on Soarin' for so long. It's sad that they haven't had it yet at Soarin'. And it's because Soarin', across that row, I believe it seats 9. We counted it once because there were too many in our row once and people got pulled off. But I believe it seats 9, so there's plenty of opportunity for single riders to get on Soarin'. The one that used to have it and now does not is Space Mountain at Disneyland. My daughter and I actually walked onto this multiple times because no one was in single rider, and we just kept going back through and going back through and going back through. And a couple times we actually rode together doing that. I would believe that one will come back eventually because Space Mountain should have it. Okay. Next, Universal Hollywood. We're going to stay out in the West Coast since we're already out there. You've got Harry Potter's Forbidden Journey, and this is the ride in the castle. That one, actually, the queue moves very quick because this one is a continuous load ride, meaning that the ride is on a conveyor belt, similar to the Haunted Mansion or to Ariel's Undersea Adventure, where the ride is continually loading and letting people off. That keeps the queue actually moving very quickly, but that one seats 4, and because of that, that ride is a great one to use single rider on. Next is right across from it, Flight of the Hippogriff. And this one is a roller coaster. It does only seat 2, but this one's a smaller queue anyways. And this one has a very quick single rider queue because not many people even know about it. That's a good opportunity over there. The next 3 are all, if you're at Universal Hollywood, they're all out on the lower lot. So that's where you go down all those millions of escalators. And there are only 3 rides down there. All 3 have it. This is the best way to knock out the lower lot. And that is Revenge of the Mummy, Jurassic World, and Transformers 3D. All of these rides seat more than 2 going across the row. So at Revenge of the Mummy, it's actually 4. Jurassic World, they have it's just a big bench seat. So you can actually put, I think, 4 or maybe 5 if they're small in there. And then Transformers seats 4 across there as well. So those single rider lines just absolutely move. And I can tell you for the queuing, you do not miss anything in these queues down at the lower lot. The Revenge of the Mummy, you're walking right through, right next to everyone else. You're going to go right to the front of the line. Jurassic World is an outdoor queue. There's nothing special about it. And Transformers, they do have a little bit of stuff in there, but there's no big pre-show. You're not going to miss any big action or any big plot that's needed for the ride. So definitely you want to do those. And again, you can knock out the lower lot probably in 30 minutes if you do the 3 single rider lines and get out of the lower lot, get back up to the upper lot, and that way you can spend your time with the shows or the other things. In fact, we'll talk about this when we talk about Universal Hollywood. You can do that park actually in about half a day if you do it right. Great opportunities out there in California. Let's jump to the opposite coast. We're now going to Orlando, and we are going to go right into Disney World. And unfortunately, this is the saddest thing about Disney World. They only have 4 rides between all 4 parks that have single rider. And they need to do this on so many more rides. And it's so sad that they haven't. And in fact, I'm going to give you another I can do this all day tip when we get into a specific one. But Test Track at Epcot, I already gave you my story. This is a great queue to skip the line. The Test Track single rider queue moves very quickly, just like Radiator Springs Racers. The cars are built the exact same. That one just flies. You don't miss anything because they actually have the stations where you can build your car in the single rider queue if you choose to stop for that. If the queue is not backed up to there, don't stop. It's not worth it. All they do is score a car and just say how well you built your car. You don't get anything out of it. It's just a little piece to keep people busy while they're waiting in a long queue. Of course, if the queue is backed up to that station where you're building your car, that's a longer single rider queue. You should be all the way up to where the line merges, if not further, when you get into the Test Track single rider queue. So if it's backed up to where they're building cars, I may skip it. I may walk back out and say I'll come back later and wait an hour and then come back and you'll probably have no wait at all. So Test Track at Epcot. That is the only one at Epcot. Again, Soarin', they're testing in California. If they get it, they'll probably do it at Epcot as well. Next is at Animal Kingdom, you have Expedition Everest. This one is a single rider queue, and this is a roller coaster with just 2 per seat. Now, the difference here is the single rider line is very difficult to find. It's actually to the left of the gift shop where you exit, and you'll see little blue signs that say single rider queue, and they point you over there. Because of that, not many people know that there is a single rider queue. So that is one that is worth going to, because the line's going to be short because no one even knows that it's there. That's a great way to skip a line, usually of about 5 or 10 minutes for single riders, and that line can get upwards of 40 minutes to an hour during the day. So Expedition Everest. When you listen to our rope drop strategy for Animal Kingdom, I actually have a tip that you could avoid single rider if you wanted to ride with your group, because you can stay ahead of the crowds there. But if you're not ahead of the crowds, definitely do the single rider there. The next 2 are both at Hollywood Studios, which actually helps your day at Hollywood Studios, because when you think about it, there are only a total of 8 or 9 rides at Hollywood Studios. So it has the fewest rides of any of the parks. It's actually very close to Animal Kingdom. But you've got Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which we talked about at Disneyland, and the Rock and Roller Coaster. The Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster is the one that I will say I've waited in single rider the longest, and it was the same length as the queue. So when you go to look at single rider, the queuing entrance is right next to the regular entrance. You will walk up the stucco ramp that goes around in a U shape and then goes into where the Aerosmith pre-show is. If the line is out there into the stucco area, don't do it. It's not worth it. If the line's out there, you're already at a 30-minute plus wait for single rider. And the reason is once you get into the actual building, you will wait for a little bit and then they'll put you through the pre-show. Again, you get to see the pre-show with Aerosmith, and then they put you into the other area where you're behind the chain link fence, and that area is usually backed up. So once you're in that area, your wait's about 20 minutes. Anything more outside, if you're not into going into the building, your wait time is going to be upwards of 45 minutes to an hour. We were at the top of the U of that stucco area, and that's where it took us an hour. Lesson learned, I won't do it again if it's all the way back out there. You're just as quick to go through the queue. In fact, funny story, the group that was right in front of us, the single riders that were right in front of us, there were two of them. When they were in behind the chain link fence, their group that waited in the traditional queue caught up to them, got on the roller coaster about 5 or 6 cars before they did. So they would have been quicker to go into the traditional queue and would have been able to ride together. That is a tough one there. We already talked, like I said, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run. The build out, if you're not familiar with the Black Spire Outpost, the Star Wars land, the build out in Disneyland and Disney World Hollywood Studios are identical, spec to spec. The actual dimensions are identical. So whatever you do at one, it's identical at the other. Again, single rider queue goes up the stairs right up into where the ride boards, and it's very quick there for the Smuggler's Run. The one ride that needs it, another I can do this all day tip of the day, is Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom. Does not have single rider. That is one that I believe eventually will. Like the Matterhorn bobsleds, it's 2 cars with 3 seats each, so 6 people, so it needs it. But here's my tip, and this actually worked for us this last time, which is why I'm bringing it up. When you're in the normal queue, so if you're just going to wait in the normal line, and you get all the way into the room where they're boarding the vehicles, you're going to go through towards the left, and you're going to go right next to where they're boarding the left side vehicles. If you look through the room still is going to zigzag probably another 8 times before you're going to get on the ride. When you go right into the room, and I'm talking immediately when you get into that room, there is a little push bar door that goes into where the ride is. When you're getting close to that area, you want to listen to the ride operator. The ride operator is going to be matching people up to their cars and getting it ready to go. And this happened to us the last time that we went. They start saying, we need a group of 3, we need a group of 2. The ride has extra space. Do we have any singles? Do we have any groups of 2? And the second she did it, I started waving my arm and said, hey, we're a group of 2. It's just my daughter and I, because we're right next to that push door. So she was able to come over, pop open the door, and we were able to walk onto the ride right then and bypass 8 more switchbacks and probably 30 minutes of wait time. So be alert when you're in that Space Mountain queue, right when you get into that room, and look at that ride operator. In fact, I will tell you now, going forward, I'm bold enough. When I get in there, I will get their attention and say, hey, if you need any single riders, we're happy to do it, and stand there to the side and wait, because she'll pull us out and they'll get us onto the rides when they need them. They're always looking for people to fill up the extra spaces in the cars, and a lot of times they can't find singles. So by all means, let them know right when you get into there that you're willing to do it, and they will pull you out of line. So that's another tip of the day for you. Let's hop over to Universal. So they've got 2 parks. They have a ton of single rider lines, and it is very well known and very used at Universal. So be prepared to have probably a little bit longer wait times for single rider lines over there. But because there are so many and they move so quickly, you're going to move quickly through these queues. So first, Escape from Gringotts, Harry Potter. So this is at Universal Studios Orlando. This is the one my daughter and I walked right on. We didn't even have to wait. We just walked on. We went right up the stairs, and they put us on the next car. So Escape from Gringotts, that's a great one. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, that's a tough one to say. That ride will shake your brain up real good. It's pretty jerky. It's a 2-seater roller coaster. So again, if the line and the queue's backed up, probably not a great one to wait for, but that's a ride that you can do it on. Men in Black, Alien Attack. This one has 3 people per row, and there's 2 rows, so 6 people per car when you go. there are always room for single riders. So this one moves very quickly and very few people wait in line there. There are some pre-show elements you're going to miss, but it's just Will Smith talking about aliens and flashing lights at you. So you're not going to miss a whole lot. Revenge of the Mummy, exactly the same as Universal Hollywood. It's 4 across, so you're going to move very quickly. The queuing goes right in line with the other queuing, so you don't miss anything over there. And then just like Hollywood Transformers 3D, this one, again, is one that I would say it's worth doing because the queue is going to be normally 40 plus minutes long. You're going to get on in less than 5 minutes. Hop over to Islands of Adventure. You've got Harry Potter Forbidden Journey in the castle again, just like in Hollywood. Exact same format over there. It's the continuous load. That one moves very quickly. Adventures of Spider-Man. This is a 3D ride exactly like Transformers. Last time we went, this is the one I sat out of. I didn't want to take the backpack on. I've ridden it 100 times. Our family all went on it, so they all went through single rider, and they were on and back off in less than 5 minutes. And it had a 45-minute wait at that point in time. So you can imagine we're saving a ton of time there. Dr. Doom's Free Fall. So this is right next to Spider-Man. This one typically doesn't have a very long queue. So you may not need it. If you've got a big group that wants to all ride together, then don't do the single rider piece. Just go into the normal queue because it's normally only 10 minutes anyways. But they do have it. So if a couple people want to go, you're going to get on the next car because there are so many seats that go around this tower. You're going to get on right away. The next one that we love, we do it every time, the Hulk roller coaster. This one, the queue is normally about an hour, especially once the park's been open for a while and the day's getting busy. You can get into single rider, and as long as you can see that it's going inside the door, so you can actually see the queue from outside, and you're going to see a section that goes upstairs and goes inside. If the queue is not backed outside of that door, your wait time's less than 10 minutes. If it is backed outside of that door, we wait usually about 15 minutes from that point, maybe 20 if it's onto the stairs, but totally worth it. So you're going to be a lot quicker in the single rider line on the Hulk roller coaster. And then the newest one, the Velocicoaster. This one is always full. There have been numerous times we've seen the single rider queue full all the way back to the edge of the queue. We have tested that. We know that wait time is somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes to get on if it's backed all the way out. So if your wait time is going to be longer than an hour, it's probably worth it, but they will shut that one down because that one gets very full. The last time we went, again, hilarious example. We walked up, my daughter and I wanted to ride it, my wife didn't, and the queue was at an hour, and so we walked up to ask about single rider because it looked like it was closed, the rope was closed, and the ride operator there said, yeah, it's been closed for a little bit, and we said, can you check to see if they're willing to open it? And so he picked up the little phone, he called into the ride, and all of a sudden he said, yeah, they're willing to open it because there's no one in line up there. And we walked right in through single rider. We walked up, we got on the very next cars. And in fact, we were right in front of one another and we were on the exact same vehicle. So really cool experience. We didn't have to wait in line. In fact, we didn't wait at all. We just walked on and it shaved a ton of time off of our day. You can imagine if you look at especially Universal and Orlando between the two parks, when we talk about a rope drop strategy, we're going to talk about the fact that we like to do both parks in the same day. You can totally do it. You have to move. You have to go very quickly, but you can totally get both parks done in the same day. The only way to do it is with single rider. When you're talking that your longest queues out there, you're only waiting 5 or 10 minutes in most cases, 15 if it's backed up. Velocicoaster, 30 minutes if that queue's all the way full. But you're able to do that on every single ride. You can knock out every single ride before early afternoon and have a great day at the park and get everything done that you want to do. So again, tune into that episode when we talk about Universal Studios Orlando, because we are going to cover both parks in a single episode for rope drop and the touring plans there. And we're going to tell you how we do it. But the one ride that has had it in the past, but is not listed on the lists today, is Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. So that is one that I'll say, Google it before you go. That one could have single rider available to you. That one's a tough one. Again, continuous load, 2 people per car. It took us a long time in that single rider line because it just doesn't move very quickly. So Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure, but you can get all the good rides done through single rider and rope drop that one if you wanted to as well. So single riders, definitely worth doing, definitely worth researching. It's okay, break up your group. You're not going to talk on the ride anyways. as long as your kids are over 10. Again, I wouldn't take a little kid on. I don't want them to feel like they have to sit next to a stranger, and they may not be comfortable. We hope you have a magical day, magical week. Look for us next week as we talk about Genie Plus and is it worth it? Bye-bye.